What I'll do is I'll create a new variable. I'm going to call it as type values.js. That's the name of the file that I create. So the first thing is I'm going to be declaring a variable. I'm going to call this as product name. I'll assign a value to it as marker. So what we've done is we've declared a variable called as product name, and the value of it is set to a string marker. I can determine what type of a value a variable is holding by using something called as a type of operator in JavaScript. Let me show you how we can do that. I can say, I can print the output. Let me go ahead and print the output of it. I'll say console.log type of product name. So if you want to determine what type of a value a variable is holding, you can use the type of operator. Now when I run this file, you can see that it will come and tell me that it is holding a value of type string. Now one thing you have to keep in mind is the return type of is a string. So it's going to be string in single quotes. I have a variable called as price whose value is 10. When I use type of price, I'll save the file, come back and run the code. It's going to return number. So a variable in JavaScript can hold a value of the number type. Now why is number in single quotes? Because the return type of is a string. I could also have a variable that holds a Boolean value. I'll declare a variable called as available. I'll set it to true. So Booleans in JavaScript is true or false. You can see that the value is a Boolean. If I say false, it's still a Boolean. If I want to store a collection of values, we can choose an array. An array in JavaScript is represented using a square brackets, and multiple values can be stored inside it. I'll create a variable called as brands, whose value is Nike, Puma, and let's say Adidas. So here we have a variable declared as an array, a collection of values. But one thing that will be surprising to see is when you run this piece of file, in JavaScript, the type of brands or a value which is holding an array does not come back and tell you it is an array, but instead it will return and say it is an object, because in JavaScript, arrays are treated as objects. Now, if you've not worked with arrays in the past, just keep in mind arrays are meant for storing collection of values. Even though it returns type of to be an object, we'll continue to call it as an array. We can also store an object literal. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and created a variable that is holding customer, which is an object. So the difference between an array and an object is in array, values are stored at different indexes. When you're working with customer, when you're working with objects, you'll have values stored inside keys. It'll still come back and return it's an object. Let's try it out. Something which is very special and unique to JavaScript, not unique, but something which is special and which is very widely used in JavaScript is you're going to be having a variable hold a function as its value. That's right. You can have a function assigned to a variable in JavaScript. You will do it something like this. We'll say customer const greet. the value of it is going to be a function, and you can return some string from it. I'll say hi there. If I ask type of greet, it'll come back and tell you that it's a function. You can also have a variable whose value is undefined. So I can just create a variable called as value whose value is undefined. So in fact, undefined is also a type. Let's see what's the output of this. It'll come back and tell you undefined is undefined, but since we are using type of, it's going to be a string of undefined. So here we are looking at the different types a variable in JavaScript can hold. It can hold a string, it can hold a number, it can hold a boolean, it can hold an array, an object, a function, or an undefined. There's a small, just extra point that I would like to make is you need to keep in mind that you cannot create a variable using a const keyword and not assign any kind of a value to it. If you're thinking like, why did I assign const value to be undefined? I could have just let it be this way. But you need to keep in mind, whenever you're declaring a variable as a const, you have to give it some kind of an initial value. If not, it's gonna throw an error. Let me show you this. You can see here, it says syntax error, missing initializer in constant declaration. Always keep in mind, if you declare a variable and if you do not want to give it any kind of a value to it, and if it's declared as a const, set the value to be undefined. That's not the case if I'm going to be doing it with, let's say, I create a variable called as number, or let's say I'll create this variable called as runs. So here the case is very different. If I come back and ask type of runs, that's fine. It's still going to run and give me the output for this. It's going to be undefined. Just a little point there to get you more comfortable working with let and const.